It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Peggy Jenkins. Peggy's going to be talking about Palouse pathways, opening doors to college and career opportunities. I guess any of us who've raised kids on the Palouse know some of the challenges of trying to figure out how to sort of steer them and toward different colleges and careers, and being on the Palouse presents its own challenges. Peggy's going to be talking about that. Peggy is the founding director of Palouse Pathways. She's got a BA in sociology and a Juris Doctorate from Boston University. She was once a litigation partner in a large law firm and now works as an independent legal researcher. She has a certificate, which means she can work from home a lot, which is really enviable. But she travels too. She has a certificate in college and career counseling from UCLA Extension, and works with other Palouse Pathways volunteers to provide information and resources free of charge to students and families from Moscow, Pullman, Genesee, Potlatch, Plummer, and beyond. So we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Help me welcome Peggy Jenkins.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell the story of Palouse Pathways. I want to start with the prologue. The organization really came together as a result of a number of different people facing problems having to do with college admissions and college access, and then coming together. For me, it was in about 2009. My son Daniel was a sophomore, just starting at Moscow High. I had moved here from Hawaii, and I guess I was pretty as close as Moscow got to being a tiger mom. I had expectations for him. Hawaii, where I lived and worked, was a place where people have high expectations for their kids, and we all lived and breathed it. And when it got to be high school time, and I'm happy to have left that kind of an environment, but I still started thinking in 10th grade, well, I'd like for him to take the PSAT. I'd like for him to be a National Merit Scholar. His cousins were. Okay, what do I do? Where do I plug in there? And I found that there weren't, at that point in time, any kind of SAT or PSAT preparations for kids here. And I realized there had been at an earlier time. I think Shirley Ringo had put something together maybe a decade before, but it wasn't happening anymore. And not only that, but none of my soccer mom friends or other people I was in touch with really seemed to know about this stuff. When I said, what about this, they really didn't know, and they didn't understand its potential importance to their kids, and that to me seemed like a problem. So at that point, I was the head of the parent group at Moscow High School, and so I had a bully pulpit because I got to send out all the messages to families. I owned the listserv. And so I started using the listserv to put out information about things. And I think probably the first one was a pretty long email about what the PSAT was, why families would care, things like that. And so over time, I would do those sorts of college things to try to educate families about the significance of this. Another person, or a couple of people who were confronting a kind of related issue, Gretchen Wisner, who I'm sure a lot of you know, who was the gifted and talented coordinator at Moscow High and at a lot of the elementary schools over time, and was somebody who worked at Moscow High with a lot of the really talented kids. And a lot of them owed a lot of their energy to her. She and Ivar Nelson, who was the interviewer for Harvard College, and still is, I think, they have alumni interviewers in town, I sort of had a discussion about how our high schoolers who were striving for those highest colleges and universities maybe did not know exactly the level at which they needed to be playing to accomplish that. It wasn't about their ability, really. It was just about their that maybe they didn't understand what an A game was when it came to getting into those most selective colleges and universities. So they talked to me, since I was kind of involved in that, and we started putting together these selective college workshops for kids, just to give them an idea of what they need to really do if that is their aspiration, and also other schools they probably don't know about that they should also be thinking about that maybe aren't as hard to get into. So that happened. Nancy Derringer at University of Idaho, who's in Family and Consumer Sciences and has done a lot with student debt, was watching her own thing unfold on campus with students taking on more and more debt, and this is like 2009, 2010, and it was freaking her out. And so she is another sort of soccer mom in my orbit, and we talked too about that, about debt, about educating kids. And then finally I had some friends at that point in time who were thinking about how they were going to pay for college. One friend in particular, her husband had lost his job in the recession, and that really took the wheels off their college plan. They had been saving for college, they had it all worked out, and then all of a sudden they needed a plan B. They went to a financial consultant who was in the Tri-Cities, who was a financial planner slash college planner, who gave them great ideas, and this friend came to me and said, you should have her come to Moscow. And so she did. So all of that started before Palouse Pathways started. All of these things sort of started coming together. When Daniel got out of school, and I lost my bully pulpit, I started thinking about a nonprofit and talked to those guys and some other folks, and they were interested in doing it. So that's when Palouse Pathways started. I kind of took the laboring oar because I do work at home and make my own schedule, and I had an empty nest at that point in time, so I needed something to do. We founded Palouse Pathways. We actually got our 501c3 real quickly. It was not a difficult thing. I was thinking it would be, but it was quite easy. I hired some student of my husband Jay's to do a logo for us. And so there's our logo, although it's changed a little, but it's always had the little balloon guy. And the balloon guy comes from this.
Oh.
And that was, I told Troy to use "Oh, the Places You'll Go" as an inspiration. And the reason for that is because that's really my inspiration. I have a privileged position on this, in a lot of ways, but to me, I think this is an incredibly exciting time in people's lives, when it's the first big decision they get to make, when it's about their agency, and there are a lot of choices. So I see it that way. With time, I've tempered that, or I certainly understand that there's a lot of countervailing things, but I still think that accentuating the positive about this transition from high school to what's beyond is a good way to do it. And if there are things that stop people from seeing it that way, well, maybe part of the problem is trying to figure out, what those problems are. I don't know, when I was a kid, part of it was just how independence, giving kids opportunities for independence was such a nice sort of way to play on, I always liked that. Independence was a positive to me when I was a teenager. I don't think it's quite the same anymore, but it was anything that I could do on my own was okay with me. Anyway, so this is, I have a little handout there, and I guess I made enough of them. This is sort of a litany of the stuff that we do. I'm not going to go through anything, I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm happy to answer questions. But I just sort of divided things into sort of categories. The first and the most important things. The most important is supporting schools and counselors. Because the most important thing for us is to know our limits and to understand that most of the stuff that happens here with kids and for kids is happening in the schools through their counselors. And that's that we are not trying to usurp anything. They're doing a great job, and we're trying to supplement and support them. So, and I'll acknowledge that those are relationships and they've taken time to work out, and they've worked out differently for each of the schools, and I still can't get the counselor at Deary to return my call, so if anyone knows Mark at all, please tell him I'm all right. But otherwise, I have very different relationships with Moscow High, with Potlatch, with the schools in Latop County, a little bit in Clarkston, Lewiston, and then Whitman County as well. So